Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's Pastor Francys Johnson, and I thought I'd come on and share a bit of our morning devotions. It's been some time since we have done a live broadcast each Wednesday at 6:30 a.m. We still hold our prayer line. The number to dial in is 712-775-7200, and the passcode is 1065315. This morning in our morning devotion prayer line, we had such a rich conversation on where we are in the midst of this year. Here we are in the first week of the last month of 2020, and what a year it has been. And I considered in the morning devotion two posts that I sort of concluded yesterday with. Both were from colleagues, one a ministerial colleague and the other a lawyer colleague. And I won't distinguish the colleague and their post, but to say that each of these posts pulled me in different directions. The first post was regarding 2021 and what we could expect. The second post was about 2021 and what we could expect. The posts were all about, how we thought the year would end and how the new year would begin, and what we were really called to in the new year, what we could do in the new year. But the posts were different in some pretty stark ways. The first post lamented about the changes that we've all experienced, and make no mistake about it, the changes that we've experienced this year, the political changes, the social and economic changes brought on by the pandemic and the political upheaval that is at the center of the political changes I just mentioned, and the disruption to the normalcy that the post really referred to. I wonder when this is all going to end and we can get back to the way things were. I know that thought. I know that many of the people who I am in community with, in terms of our faith community, experience this sort of looking back, if you will. But I just want to remind folks that it is not as if the pre-pandemic days were idealistic, nor were the pre-Trump days idealistic. And so we would do well to not glorify what at that time were difficult days for the church and our faith community, with dwindling memberships as well as church attendance. The most popular meme as it related to the church was "I'm tired of this church," which sort of characterized the feeling of most folks who felt like they were plowing ground that had already been turned over, and simply going through the motions, or that church had changed in such ways that they hardly recognized it, or that the lack of integrity at the heart of the search for the truth in most of our churches, our temples, our mosques, our synagogues, had allowed a disdain to set in for the institution itself, and those who lead the institution, who were not being bold enough when it came to the justice principles, the love ethic, and the notion that mercy should guide our every action. And so, the denigration of people and their humanity for one reason or another, and the validation of that through the church, were all parts of the pre-pandemic issues that we were concerned about. And so That first post really lamented where we were and wanted to look back, and I get that. And that post had me feeling a certain sort of way. And then nearly immediately after that post, another colleague sent me another post, and it said, "What if we leaned in to this moment? What if we embraced it? And instead of looking back, we decidedly and with determination to learn, grow, and be better, look forward." And that pulled me in a completely different direction. And it immediately drew me to the wisdom of the Psalms and Proverbs. And the first one that we considered this morning and I offer to you as a part of this morning devotion comes from Psalms 37, verse 3. It says, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord." That's what it says. As I heard it in my spirit, it came to me as a question. What does it mean that the steps of a good man, good woman, good person are ordered by the Lord? Well, the steps are ordered by the Lord if the steps are directed by the Lord. And if we have moved with purpose, with all the information that is available to us, if we've moved with purpose, with prayerful consideration of the circumstances, the times, and the place that we are called to work, live, and play. If we move with purpose, leaning in to those things that I mentioned earlier, with integrity, being guided by the love ethic, being prompted by the merciful thing in all of our actions, and seeking to improve the human condition in what we do, then our steps are ordered by the Lord, which immediately brought me to the Proverbs, and very familiar Proverbs that just took on new meaning in light of that second post from my friend. I don't know if he understood just what a challenge that post was and how much I needed that challenge last night. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. And oftentimes when we are challenged, we want to run back to the familiar, that which we consider safe, that which we know, at least we think we know, the consequences in terms of that space. To lean not to that own understanding, but in all of our ways to acknowledge God and allow God to direct our paths. If our steps are ordered, and if that's what it means to be a good man, to be a good woman, to be a good person, to be willing and obedient to follow God, then that means that our steps are guided by God. And our prayer today in our prayer group, my prayer that I offer to you today, and I invite you to offer for your own journey, is, am I moving? Am I, like Dr. Carol Knight says, am I living on purpose? So I brought out my mug with my coffee today. It is a Live with Purpose mug. I'm going to offer to Dr. Knight, if she hadn't already branded her own coffee mugs, that she needs to do that to live on purpose. And in a real sense, if we have, then this first week of the last month of this year should not bring the kind of trepidation, the kind of hand wringing, the kind of anxiety producing laments that first post brought to me. But instead, it should bring us to the feeling that if we leaned in, even in this moment, this first week of the last month of this year, that there is still so much in 2020 that we can learn, that we can gather and grow from as we enter into 2021, that we can receive, and we open ourselves up to that possibility, then we may discover the real truth of Advent, which began this past Sunday and runs through this Christmas season. This sense that there is something to be expected. Don't lose that in the midst of all that you're going through. And I know that it's challenging. I know that it's difficult. I know that many of you feel as if you have turned and you are at the end. But just hold on. Don't lose that sense that there is still something to be gained, something for your good to be received in the midst of this year. Want to encourage you today, as I've been encouraged, that you've got, two paths. One exhibited by my first colleague who was lamenting on what has been and how can we get back to that place. And another path exhibited by another colleague, what is and what will happen, what could happen if we lean into what is to discover what can be. And I would urge you to take the expected path, to take the path of Advent, because there is an amazing thing that awaits those whose expectations are measured by God. All things work together for the good. And I know you love God. I know you've been called according to God's purpose. And that's why you're good, because your steps are ordered. Your path is directed. And that can give us some comfort in the midst of all that is going on. I want to lift up and pray for you this morning. We did that for those who find themselves really in a catastrophe, and that catastrophe is confounded by the lack of response from those who have a duty to care for the welfare of our communities. Lack of response to folks who are dealing with the economic upheaval associated with the pandemic, and still no relief as politicians look after their own interests rather than looking after the interest of our communities at the local level, at the state level, across this nation. We're seeing the ill fruits of that inattention. And so I just want to pray for those experiencing these sorts of issues. Also lift up and pray for those who have experienced death. And we see the death toll reported on the news as some number that seems to continue to grow. But as a pastor, I have walked beside families, far too many families this year, to the final resting places of their loved ones who've experienced death associated with COVID, and those who've experienced death otherwise. This has impacted the way that they are able to celebrate the person's life, to share in the traditions of their community. And it's been a real struggle. And I think we'll reckon with that struggle in the years to come, in terms of what this year has brought to us. So I'm just praying for folks, praying for small business owners like myself, small business owner, who are just trying to get through and live out the best of your ideals in the way you treat your employees, and just praying for those who continue to have to put themselves in harm's way as essential workers in this moment, school teachers who are teaching our kids, first responders who are manning the lines of our social safety net, those who do ordinary jobs in extraordinary ways, continue to remove the garbage from our streets, as well as take care of our loved ones in nursing homes for little pay and very little thanks. For those who are struggling because you've been unemployed and you feel like your purpose is wanting, because we measure purpose so much in this country by our titles and our positions. I want to pray for you today. You are not your title. You're much more than that. And it is quite possible that in losing that title, you can find who you really are and what you're really called to do in this moment by taking that path towards expectation, away from lamenting what has been and trying to get back to where you were. There's a path to move forward. And so what a powerful devotion it was for me. I hope that it was for you as well. From Psalms 37, verse 3, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not to thine own understanding. In all your ways, God shall direct your path. I want to offer a couple of readings to you. People ask me, I want a good study Bible. Is there one that you can recommend? And of course, I recommend the Africa Bible for those who want an Afrocentric lens on the scriptures, who want to push back against the Western encroachment upon the truth and all that means in terms of the worst aspects of that, the commoditization of faith and the objects of our faith, the reduction in terms of humanity, and the exploitation of the resources around us, very Western. And so the Africa Bible gives you a different lens at that. There's a companion that I had mentioned before, but I wanted to just lift up and put on the screen today. It's called the Africana Bible. And this is a reading from some of the leading scholars. It's very accessible. It's not too dense, but it's very accessible writings on the Old Testament in particular. And Dr. Page is the general editor of this. And there's lots of good folks who I count as friends who have added to this work. And I offer these as some reading tools. We'll post these in the thread. You can get those as you gather reading material for this last month of the year. I want to remind folks that the registration deadline to participate in the upcoming runoff, I should say runoffs, it's quickly approaching. You need to get that registration in by the 4th. You want to make sure that you get that to your local office. You can fax it, email it, send it, whatever way you can get it there so that you can participate in these runoffs. My commentary on the runoffs has been reflected in an article that has been published nationally on the racist origins of Georgia's runoff system. It was conceived as an attempt to push back against progressive court rulings that were making wider the franchise, making more accessible the franchise, the vote to Black people. And Georgia's primary was conceived by those who wanted to block that progress and stymie the ability of Black candidates in particular and consensus candidates when people come together in communities of interest to vote for candidates of their choice. Langston has joined us this morning. Good morning, buddy.
Morning.
Good morning. You get ready to have some breakfast?
Yes.
All right. Very good. And so, Langston, come back for a moment. I want you to tell us this morning who you think the people should vote for in terms of the Senate runoff. You got Kelly Loeffler is running against Raphael Warnock. Who's the best choice? No pressure. You've been watching.
Both of them are good.
Both of them are good.
But if they get a tie, I think that would be actually a very good meeting.
Well, they're already at a tie, so we're in a runoff now. And in our household, we're supporting Raphael Warnock. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
And in the other race with John Ossoff and David Perdue, we're supporting John Ossoff. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. All right.
Because David Perdue produces lies.
David Perdue produces lies. Out of the mouth of babes, the truth comes. So, yeah. So go out and make sure that you cast your vote. I do that because he cannot vote, but his interest, his future is on the ballot, as well as the future for our community. So go out and choose the vote. They are counting on you to stay home. I hear you. I hear you, buddy. They're counting on you to get too busy in the coming year to cast the vote, to drop off and not return back to the poll. That's why the runoff was conceived in the first place. But it will not be so. I know that you will go out and exercise your right to vote. If you have questions or concerns about the issues or the candidates, you can certainly reach out to me. Be happy to talk with you about it. Get connected to an organization if you want to do some work. You have a few hours to lean in and to reach out to voters. Reach out to your neighbors. You should do so. The newgeorgiaproject.org is a great place to start. Other organizations, including NAACPGA.org, the state NAACP, is available, as well as Fair Fight. And these are all organizations that we work closely with, and we encourage you to do the same. We are part of a PAC, the Georgia Blue Project, and we just sent out a response to Kelly Loeffler, David Perdue, and Doug Collins, who were very critical of Pastor Warnock, and really in a racist slammed Ebenezer Baptist Church. And that was an attack not just on the institution that is Ebenezer, but on the institution that is the Black church. And make no mistake about it, it was intentional, and it requires intentional responses for those of us who are servants within that church, and have come to love that church for what it has done in the face of American white supremacy, which has been a bulwark that has never failed, which has been a shelter in a time of storm, and a battle axe in a time of all of those things that we say about the Black church. If you love it, you ought to say something about it. We don't need to elect leaders who will denigrate the church as they have. Just think about it. You think they would have said the same against a Jewish synagogue? No, I doubt it. But they feel like they have the ability, the freedom, because of Trumpism, to say these things about the Black church. They were very critical of our interpretation of the scripture, of what we have tried to do in terms of pushing back and preserving our humanity and keeping it through the Black church. So we were very critical of that. And the Georgia Blue Project, we sent out a mass message about that. And if you got that message, please respond. And you may want to contribute to the Georgia Blue Project, which is designed to amplify these runoff races, make sure that we don't have drop-off voting, make sure folks get out, and the like. So I know it's cold this morning. I got my sweater on. I've got my cup of coffee. I'm getting ready to get out of this house and get to work today. And I know that you are ready to do the same. I want to sign off. Langston has come back, and get him signed in for virtual online learning after he gets some breakfast. And we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you for joining this morning. And I appreciate all of those who have placed comments in the thread and have tuned in. Take care, and God bless.